Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Gabe.
Hi, I'm Randi.
And I'm Jamie.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Woohoo.
Hey, I forgot to wear green.
Yeah, we all did.
I don't like doing the wearing green thing. So I'm like, I look like a leprechaun every other day of the year.
Yeah.
And the whole green beer thing.
No.
That crap. I don't do that.
There was a guy who left my doctor's office. He was coming out as I was going in. He was like green pants, green sweater. Like he had on a hat. He might have had a necklace. I don't know. It was definitely, I felt like, oh, wow, I really dropped the ball on this because apparently
he was probably Italian.
Italian makes sense.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that real Irish people
Don't do that.
Oh, okay.
it's not a cartoon. But before we get started with our agenda, I just got done watching the Irish Prime Minister in the White House this morning gave a badass speech talking about how the Irish were some of America's first immigrants. We built this country and made America great. And he's standing right beside Donald Trump talking.
That's awesome.
Just straight up respect immigrants, because if you disrespect them, you're disrespecting us and our history.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that's my people, right?
Exactly. That's good.
It was great. So everybody go watch the Irish Prime Minister as soon as we're done.
Yeah.
But the first thing we have to talk about today is about Toledo. Everything is Toledo. You know, Toledo is the neglected city in the state of Ohio. Everybody focuses on the big 3 C's. Toledo is like the swing city in every big election. We had a great event we'll talk about in a little bit in Toledo last night, but Right to Life of Greater Toledo, different event, held their legislative breakfast this morning, and their keynote speaker was Ohio Supreme Court Justice Sharon Kennedy.
In other news this week, the Ohio Supreme Court decided to take up the Capital Care lawsuit to stay open from Toledo. So now you have a justice on the Ohio Supreme Court talking to Greater Toledo Right to Life's legislative breakfast this morning, who then in a couple of months is going to hear the Toledo case and the preterm abortion case as well.
I'm assuming she didn't make a special trip over there to tell them how bipartisan she is and how if she's going to be on the up and up, and then they shouldn't expect anything from her.
Well, we didn't get to hear her remarks, but I'm guessing no. I feel that that's a safe bet on my part.
Yes.
Supreme Court justices, you lose all ability to look at a case impartially if you're participating in
the
fundraising event for an organization that's taking an active role in lobbying to create legislation to shut down clinics. You can't then go and be the judge in a case as to whether or not that clinic gets to stay open. This is a terrible conflict of interest, and Justice Kennedy needs to recuse herself.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand why she would do this if she doesn't plan on like, this is obviously not okay for you to go there and then try to say that you're going to be impartial. Like, I don't understand what her was on this.
My favorite line out of the Inquirer article about this that was that we'll put in the show notes was, she told the Inquirer when they asked her about her endorsements from Ohio Right to Life that she didn't give up her First Amendment right to free speech when she became a judge. Like, well, no, you didn't. But you've got to also be able to show that you can be an impartial person. And by being the keynote speaker at a fundraiser for an organization that pushed this bill, if I'm remembering it right, like the whole transfer agreement stuff and all that stuff was even announced with Lynn Watchman in Toledo with Toledo Right to Life. Like they were the people who started pushing for these transfer agreement laws.
Because the University of Toledo Medical Center was where all of this started.
Yeah, so it was the public hospital ban that sent Capital Care into this situation. The push for that legislation was announced in Toledo with Greater Toledo Right to Life. And now she's speaking at the event for the organization that introduced pushing for this bill.
Right.
Yeah.
Interest that she needs to recuse herself from both the capital care case and a separate case, which in terms of cases is unrelated, but in terms of subject matter is still quite relevant. Preterm, the clinic in Cleveland, is challenging abortion restrictions, correct me if I'm wrong, that have been inserted into state budgets. A budget is really just a bill. It's a $60 billion bill that the state has to pass every 2 years. Bills are supposed to be single subject. So the budget subject should be about the budget and not the budget plus random abortion restrictions. So Preterm is challenging this, saying, no. This was passed illegally. These abortion restrictions should be struck down because through the legislative process, according to law, that case is also headed to the state Supreme Court. Justice Kennedy should not be participating in either of these cases.
Yep.
So as Jamie mentioned, Cincinnati Enquirer this morning was reporting on it. They broke the news and have a quote from Kellie Copeland, our executive director. Kellie said, Justice Kennedy should recuse herself from any case related to legislation that was proposed and supported by the anti-abortion groups that endorsed her candidacy to avoid any appearance of impropriety.
Yep. I would agree. I think that's the fair thing to do.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, you can't have, like you said, you can't have both. You can't say that I'm still going to go over here and speak, and I'm still going to rule on a case that's obviously they would want you to rule in their favor, and they give you money. I mean, it's just so many things.
Well, and the hypocrisy is really, really just hugely ripe here as well, because I can't remember which case it was. It was either a Planned Parenthood one of the justices that was supposed to hear one of the at some point been a board member or a supporter of Planned Parenthood in Cincinnati, and the anti threw up how he was going to be the judge who decided the case, and he was forced to recuse himself.
I'm pretty positive he'd been a Planned Parenthood board member.
Yeah, I think that was it. So
Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio.
So he recused himself of the, whether or not he was an impartial person. The appearance was that he was not impartial. And this same way, I mean, you now have fundraised for this organization. You need to step back and say, I can't hear this case any longer.
Exactly.
Or you should have not gone in the first place. But, whatever.
Right. So that's our state news. Looking at what's happening nationally, I feel like a week ago we talked about how the ACA reform had been unveiled, and it already
hot ass mess
is almost virtually dead hot ass mess.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing really seems to be out of gas already. So.
I mean, you mean out of gas like they're not still going to try to pass it, or just out of gas like really terribly?
It's certainly not going to pass. They were talking about, we're going to get this done by Easter, which nobody believed. No. But this thing is not going to get passed anytime soon. I mean, the amount of, we joked about this. It was last week how. The Democrats hate this. The conservative Republicans hate this. The people who like it are pretty much Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. And I think that really sort of hit home this past week. Rachel Maddow was talking about it. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
When you're giving $500,000 tax cuts to insurance company CEOs and at the same time basically virtually repealing Medicaid.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that the only way that they're going to be able to get the Republicans hate it not because it repeals Medicaid, but doesn't repeal it enough.
Right. That's what I was about to say. Isn't that the crazy thing? The other side, it's like we don't want to help you at all. The government shouldn't help you at all. If the old people, y'all should have done better. You should have planned better. It's not our job to take care of you now. Stand this so-called party of values, Christian values. And then I thought, the Bible that I read growing up said that we're supposed to help the poor and feed the hungry. I mean, I guess we're throwing that part out. We're only looking at it also does say if you don't work, you don't eat. But at the same time, you have to help the people who are having a hard time so they can get to the point where they can work to eat. But I mean, and old people who can't work, I mean, I don't understand why the animosity towards them, like they never worked before and they paid into that, and now we're just going like 5 times. You have to pay 5 times more. Just I don't understand. And again, the side of being just like we poor people. And then I heard the one, I can't remember his name, saying that poor people don't want health care.
Yeah, I remember.
Or they need to stop. They need to stop buying iPhones.
Yeah, because my iPhone costs the same amount as my insurance.
Right. That was Jason Chaffetz.
Yeah, they're like, talk about just being completely out of touch with anyone who is poor or who is struggling. Like that means you don't have anybody around you really personally in your personal circle that you talk to every day that you know that's struggling. Because otherwise, how could you possibly continue to put forth bills like this if you know people personally? And it's like you shouldn't have to know people personally struggling. This is clear that they don't.
Yeah. And I think the other, really interesting piece is that, when you hear, I sit in too many budget hearings. And so the Medicaid director will come in and talk about, and it's interesting because, I think the one good thing that Governor Kasich has done has been a strong supporter of the Medicaid expansion. Probably not for the right reasons, but leave that alone. So we'll give him like just like 0.5 millimeter of credit for that. But so when his Medicaid director comes in and talks about it, there are people in the high legislature who don't believe it either. They're just crazy as people in the Congress.
Yeah.
But he comes in and he talks about how when you get people healthy, they can actually go out and get a job.
Oh my God.
What? Like when they're unhealthy and they can't walk, they can't get a job. Shocking. So, if you want to
help them, Jesus. Yeah. Help them. They need to be educated.
Yeah. So
speaking of education, we'll get into that later with his budget. But okay.
Well, Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, she was saying that I don't think that the Planned Parenthood defund should be in the ACA bill that we're dealing with. Just don't think so. CNN quoted her as saying. So, I think that's a good chunk of it. And they were quoting other sort of anonymous House aides that saying this bill is dead. Too many conservative groups are coming out against it. There's no way they'll have the votes to pass it. It's going to pass it in its current form. So
that also makes me nervous, though, that they're going to try to go back and make it even worse.
But I think there's enough people paying attention to it right now. That that they are probably going to put this thing in the back burner, kick it back to Paul Ryan's smoke-filled back room, and start to work on Trump's budget. Speaking of
that piece of shit,
what the
came out
or the
I know we have to be specific.
Talk about the bill there.
Yeah, it's almost like a cartoon budget that Donald Trump from like 1985, you'd be like, oh, I bet this is what Donald Trump would do if he was president. And now he's unfortunately president, and it's just that bad.
Yes.
Well, and it sounds like that's how they made it, because then the budget director dude got up and was talking about it yesterday. He's like, well, we listened to all of Donald Trump's speeches from the campaign, and then we went and did what we thought he wanted based on those speeches. So it wasn't even like Donald Trump's like policy team sat down together with the budget people and said, okay, this is his priorities. They listened to his campaign speeches and decided to cut 30% out of the EPA, or, Meals on Wheels. And
so housing and urban development, $6.2 billion cut. Transportation, $2.4 billion cut. Health and human
Even though he was supposed to put in an infrastructure bill. We're supposed to be doing infrastructure, something he said he was going to work with Democrats on, try to get people out to work, but instead he's cutting the Department of Transportation.
Right.
Like, okay, that wasn't in his speech to cut the Department of Transportation. I don't remember that.
Health and Human Services cut $12.6 billion. Department of Education, $9 billion. EPA, $2.6 billion. I mean, just
basically the EPA is going to be cut in half. There's not going to be any enforcement. They've cut like so many research. They cut the National Institute of Health. That's like research for cancer and diseases. We're not, I mean,
science. We don't need science, Randy.
jeez.
USDA water and wastewater program, $500 million cut. $250 million for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So that's like weather research.
Climate change isn't real.
Just huge, massive cuts across the board. The Washington Post pointed out that every single time Donald Trump flies to Florida to spend the weekend at Mar-a-Lago and back, that's Meals on Wheels for 461,538 seniors.
Stop fucking going to Florida every weekend. You don't need a vacation every week. Dude that was going to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, would never take a vacation.
Right. So yeah, it's inhumane how, conservative isn't even the right word for it.
No.
It's just cruel and inhumane, this Trump budget.
You left out the parts where the budget actually went up.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, what are those?
The Defense Department or
That we don't
planes,
need.
more.
We literally have fighter jets sitting in. I'm sure they're not in boxes, probably like cargo, but basically just sitting around that we've made and didn't use. Why do we need to make more?
Right.
He wants to have fancy military parades outside of the White House, like Kim Jong-un
The
does
guy
in North
the
Korea.
guy who did everything he possibly could to not go into the military. Like, it's crazy.
He's got small hands, Randy. We can do that.
I know, right?
He needs big guns. He needs big guns. He's got small hands.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean,
Yes.
biggest military in the world. Never once have I heard the generals come up and be like, hey, we don't have enough of this.
No.
Normally the story that you hear, and this fits right in, is some member of Congress is, we're going to get this for the military. And the military is like, we don't actually need that, and it might be a ship or it might be, an entire set of planes.
Shit that
None
we
of them have
don't
been coming
need.
forward saying, hey, to protect our troops and the homeland. That conversation hasn't been going on.
No.
But, here's wheelbarrows full of cash
Yeah.
for the military, who apparently are fully funded already. But we're cutting Meals on Wheels and PBS and NPR and all of these other things that barely cost us anything in the big picture.
And is the VA getting an increase? Or are they
It is actually the one thing that is getting an increase that I might actually agree with.
Oh, okay. A very small increase.
Yes, smaller than the military. I think this military % increase, and VA was like a 2% increase or something like that. But yes, it was actually on the increase. There were 3 things. I can't remember what the third one was in the article that I read, but
I don't know. But yeah, apparently Trump was in the cabinet room with the press, and he was talking about all the things that we're doing for the VA. And I'm headed down to Mar-a-Lago to have a very important meeting on the VA. And he looks at the VA secretary sitting right beside him. He's like, are you coming to that? The VA secretary is like, no.
What?
It's like, how big of a meeting is this? Your VA secretary.
Just say I'm going on my weekend vacation.
Right.
To not do shit. Yeah.
Yes. He's golfed more times than like Barack Obama did like in his entire presidency, but whatever.
But he wasn't going to go on any vacations.
Right.
Like, this man. Oh, man. I mean, this budget is ridiculous. The education budget. And this whole, now they're going to go to the school choice or vouchers or whatever. But it's like, not all the kids are going to be able to fit into a quote unquote better school than maybe the one they were at. I don't understand. Wouldn't it make more sense to just make all the schools better instead of saying, well, these schools have so far, they've done a good job. So here's some money. So you got, I mean, all those kids are not going to fit at the better school. I mean, it's not going to happen.
So the poor kids are going to be stuck in a really, really, really bad school.
Yeah.
Because vouchers don't actually work to help poor kids get into private schools.
No.
Because they don't pay the entire amount of tuition. They pay a portion of the tuition.
Exactly.
Right.
So who can afford to pay for the other portion of the tuition? I actually read a research study somewhere at one point where it was talking about like the people who get vouchers are not even like new students going into these schools. They're students who are already enrolled in a private school their parents are like, woohoo, I can save a little money. I'm going to get this voucher.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not even to move that poor kid from this struggling inner city public school into a private school so they can get better education. It's to pay part of the tuition for a kid, middle class, probably white kid who's already there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I understand some people are like excited about this school choice, or, you know, on the face value, it sounds great. You know, like on face value, right to work sounds great. A lot of things sound great on face value. That's why they named it that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing for your child, especially like you say, if you're poor, the school's just going to get worse because they're not going to have any money and your kid's not going nowhere.
Okay.
Like, sorry, like this budget is terrible. It's so terrible.
Yep. So that's Trump world. We'll continue to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Back to Toledo, though. We want to talk about some of our events here in Ohio. Last night, I was up there with many of our Freedom of Choice Ohio Coalition partners. I'm stupidly going to try and name them all again. It's Planned Parenthood was up there, Urge, For Our Future, Keep Abortion Safe and Legal in Toledo, which is the really excellent local group working to protect the Capitol Care Clinic. They work with many of Capitol Care's patient escorts. Who else was there? AAUW. And somebody there that was speaking for the reproductive justice movement. I'm not sure if she was affiliated with an organization.
She might have been. Was it a local activist? Anita?
Nope. Anita Rios was there.
Okay, so now and Toledo now we're there too. Yes. But yeah.
So, anyways,
bunch of people.
Yeah, really terrific event in Toledo. The work that they're doing on the ground to protect the clinic, to have for Capitol Care is really admirable. They're also working to put pressure on ProMedica, the local hospital system up there, who has the ability today to write a transfer agreement, the permission slip to the clinic that gets them past all of Kasich's trickery, costs the hospital system nothing, requires them to do nothing other than just sign one piece of paper saying, yeah, we'll take your patients if you have an emergency, which
because they're going to take them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So really terrific event. Annie Kroll, our field organizer, she was sort of the lead on this. I was up there to support and take pictures. Annie led people in a they were writing letters to Sherrod Brown. We talked about Sherrod Brown a lot on the podcast last week. He's, as we said, one of the most vocal opponents to the Neil Gorsuch nomination for the Supreme Court. So the attendees all wrote letters thanking him for that opposition and encouraging him to continue that, and all the way through a filibuster, make sure that this nomination doesn't just slip by.
Yeah. And it was our culminating Row Together events for the kind of activist boot camps that we were rolling through. So
yes, that got us over the 1,000 participant mark for all of these events statewide, which is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've that the same coalition is moving forward with our annual advocacy day. So the Road Together boot camps now transition to a Road Together State House Advocacy Day, May 3rd. Mark your calendars. Take some time off of work if you have it. Come down to 10 to 4 during the day. It'll be a terrific day to get trained and to meet with state legislators and their offices and staff.
Yeah, it's an annual event. We do it every year. It'll be fabulous and wonderful. Make sure your voice is heard in the State House. We're going to talk about our proactive policies. So we're not just going to be talking about bad stuff, but how they could do good things for our state, and just make sure that our pro-choice voices are heard in the State House.
Exactly. Oh, it's time to get it on. Okay. Let's get it on. Okay, so I'm very excited. On Tuesday, NARAL, along with Group of Freedom Happy Hour, is having our event, Pens to Pictures, which is going to be 5 short films by women who are actually incarcerated at Dayton Corrections facility. So I'm very excited about it. So if you're not doing anything, it's going to be at the Columbus Metro Library downtown, the one on Grant
Street. Yep.
Yes. It's also on our Facebook page, 6:30 to 9 p.m. So we're going to watch all 5 films, and then we're going to have a panel. Alana from New Voices, and New Voices is a reproductive justice organization that we do a lot of work with, mostly right now in Cleveland because that's where they're based. So I'm really happy that she has time to drive down to Columbus. So she's going to come and talk to us afterwards and just give, a little RJ one-on-one for people not familiar. Also, we're going to have the director of the program, Chinanye, and she's a film studies professor at Wright State. So it should be a really great event. I'm very excited to see the films and to get everybody talking. So that's going to be on Tuesday. On Thursday, I'll be in Cincinnati. We're going to have a Learn and Take Action night there. Planned Parenthood will be there. And so I'll be giving a presentation. We'll be talking about, what's been going on at the State House, these recent restrictions, and also supporting Sherrod Brown. So we'll be writing letters to Sherrod, and Planned Parenthood will be there to talk about, all the things that are going on with him and to do some direct action training. So that's Thursday from 6 to 8 in Cincinnati at Urban Artifact Brewery.
She says Thursday, she means March 23rd.
Yes, Thursday, March 23rd.
Right. So March 21st is the thing at the library. March 23rd is in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you were on a roll. I interrupted. Keep going.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you have that. On the same day, you'll be in Canton. Is that scheduled? It was on the Google Calendar.
Yes.
Okay.
So on March 30th in Canton, we've got a microphone training, which is sort of a small group to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the policies that we've seen recently and that we're seeing come back in this next legislative session. An email went out to people in the Canton area. You'll find information on all of these in the show notes for this. And then that same night, March 30th in Dayton. Did you talk about that?
Oh, yes. So then again, March 30th in Dayton. Thursday, the next Thursday. So 2 weeks from yesterday. We're going to be in Dayton having a Learn and Take Action night again. So if you're in that area, please come and join us. Planned Parenthood will be there with me as well, Stephanie. And I'll be at the Dublin Pub from 6 to 8 p.m. March 30th. Again, we have Facebook events for all these. So on our Facebook page, you can see all our upcoming events. And then on April 1st.
No, that's at April 1st at the State House is a Columbus Against Sexual Violence rally. So we're promoting some of our friends' events here. In mid-April, hasn't yet been finalized, but we'll probably do another one of these microphone trainings down in Athens. So
yes.
If you're at OU or live in the Athens area and want some of this, we haven't.
Just to
pencil that one in and keep your ears peeled for that.
Yes, but that'll be happening. Also planning on doing a screening there too if we don't run out of time before the kids are out of school. But definitely doing a Learn and Take Action night there very soon.
Yep. April 27th is Preterm's Bowl-a-thon. April 29th is Women Have Options Bowl-a-thon, and that brings us all the way back to the beginning of May. And May is Advocacy. Register. We want to have a huge crowd for that. Like
I have one more thing to add.
Talk to your boss and take the day off.
Next Thursday, May 23rd, March 23rd, not May. God. I am actually speaking. The Department of Geology at Ohio State is doing a public panel lecture series thing that they do on the impact of this fake news and the distrust of science and fact in our political sphere. So they're going to be talking about fracking and the pipeline, Dakota Access Pipeline, and the impact on reproductive health and reproductive justice and all these things. So kind of a very broad panel discussion. So that'll be at the faculty club. We'll put the information in the show notes on that as well.
Last note before we go is we want to give a shout out to Amy Hagstrom Miller and the folks down at Whole Women's Health in Texas.
Their Austin Whole Women's Health Clinic this week. So as one of the ones as of House Bill 2, they've now reopened it and are trying to reestablish a better foothold in Texas after the good Supreme Court ruling last year. So
awesome.
Good job, Amy, and all the staff at Whole Women's Health. You're awesome.
that's incredible. Just knowing what an extra clinic in Ohio would mean for, you know, to have an extra clinic in Texas. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.